Good day and welcome to today's Huntington Learning Center webinar, What's Changing on the ACT? These are details, timing, and everything parents and students need to know about this important college admissions exam. I'm Michael Hackmer. I'll be your moderator for today's event, and on behalf of everyone at Huntington Learning Center, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We know that there's a lot going on, and we really appreciate you making time to join us for this presentation. So before I introduce our speaker, I want to talk a little bit about Huntington Learning Center. As many of you know, Huntington is a proven K-12 tutoring and test prep organization. There are really three things that I think help differentiate Huntington from other tutoring and test prep centers or programs, or even just going out and hiring a tutor for your child. First of all of our tutors and trainers are highly trained. We have a very specialized training program which has won awards over the years, and it's really critical for us to make sure that anyone who's interfacing with your child has the experience, the knowledge, and expertise to be able to break down these topics and help them master them. Huntington's also accredited, so accredited by Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools. And the reason why that's important is because as your child goes on through their academic journey and they seek certificates and degrees and higher education, many of those institutions are also certified by Middle States. And so it's important for us to maintain that level of consistency. And then lastly, but certainly not least, in fact, I think this is probably one of the best differentiators that Huntington has, is that everything that we do is very individualized. It's very personalized. We get students in, we conduct an assessment, and when it comes to these college exams, we want to do a practice test. Really want to get an understanding for where your son's or daughter's strengths and weaknesses are. And then that way we can develop a personalized program to help them be more successful. And the results really do speak for themselves. With a lot of great success, you can see on the screen here, about 229 points on average increase for the SAT and 5.4 points average increase for the ACT score. And within all of our programs, we have flexible scheduling options available in-center, online, and I think the success is a reason why many people keep coming back to Huntington as they go through their academic journey. Now, I do want to introduce Marielle Carroll, who's going to be our presenter today. She's also Senior Training Manager at Huntington Learning Center. And one of the great things about Marielle is that she's not just a trainer, but she was also once a student. And so she's come full circle in her Huntington life cycle, you could say. And in her tenure, she's worked with thousands of team members, making sure that they're trained and ready to go to help kids all across the country. And then, of course, she's also worked with students directly. So we have a great expertise here, and I'm really excited. So Marielle, without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for having me today. So before we dive in, let's take a quick look first at our agenda. We'll start with an overview of the main ACT changes, then get into the detailed changes in each of the test sections and a rundown, not just of what is changing, but also what isn't changing on the ACT. We'll share the timing and rollouts of these enhancements and how this may impact your students' test and preparation. We'll talk about upcoming test dates, and as well as making a few recommendations for students who are affected by these changes. We'll then go over a few other details that you as parents really need to know about the importance of the ACT and the SAT if your student is considering that exam too. And of course, we'll share more about Huntington's programs and how we've adapted to make sure that we are able to work with all students regardless of what tests they are prepping for. And at the end, as Michael shared, we'll wrap up with a Q&A section. So feel free to jot down your questions and throw them into the chat box as we go. So let's get started, and let's start with an overview of the main enhancements to the ACT. Before we dive into these changes, I think first it's important to share the timing of the changes to this ACT test. The first phase of this rollout is coming up soon, and this is happening in April. This will impact students who register for the online ACT on a national test day. And those are the tests that are administered on Saturdays. These April online students will be the first to get the enhanced version. They'll also choose whether they wish to take the science section. However, this is just an online test. Students taking the paper tests in April, June, or July will see the same exam format that we have today, with the science section still being required. Now, phase 2 of this change starts in September, and this is September of 2025, where both of the online ACT and the paper ACT will reflect the enhancements. Lastly, phase 3, starting in the spring of 2026. This is going to happen when students who will take that ACT on a school day through their state or their district will start to see those enhancements. At this point, though, all test takers will get the enhanced ACT. So whether you're taking the test online or on paper, both in national testing centers, at schools, at school district testings, by the time we get into spring of 2026, all students will be taking this enhanced ACT. So what changes are coming to the ACT? Now, you've heard me use the term enhancement, and this is a term that the ACT is using too. This is not a complete overhaul, but the test is still changing. So let's discuss how. The first major change is probably the biggest here, and that's the fact that the science test will be optional. Parents, if you're familiar with the ACT, you might know that it's currently made up of an English test, a math test, a reading test, and a science test. There's an optional writing test or essay as well. So the core for the enhanced ACT test will be made up of those first three, the English, math, and reading sections. The second change is that the optional test section will no longer be part of that composite ACT score. Students who choose to take the science test will receive a separate score for that section. So just as they receive a separate score right now for their writing test or that essay. So how will these two major changes impact your student's test? If your child is taking the enhanced ACT, they should take the science test. That's a big question that we keep getting asked. Really, if your child is interested in pursuing a science-based major in college, it's recommended to take that science section. So I want you to think about this like a resume. If your child is submitting a list of skills or qualifications when they're applying for colleges, that includes this test. The better they score on each section, the more skills that they show that they have, the better chance that they'll have in being recognized by their college of their choice on those applications. Now, overall, the enhanced ACT will be shorter, and this is going from about 195 minutes of testing down to 125 minutes, or 2 hours and 5 minutes in length. In addition, the ACT will have fewer questions overall, 44 in total in the 3 sections, and it will allow test takers more time per question. And lastly, the enhanced ACT will reduce the number of answer choices in math from 5 choices to 4. Now, how about the details? Total questions in each of the different ACT sections is changing, as you can see here, along with the length of time. The English test will go from 75 questions down to 50, and the total time on that section goes down by 10 minutes, and that's from 45 minutes for them to take this section to 35. This allows students about 42 seconds per question, which is an increase from the 36 seconds per question on the English test today. The reading test is decreasing by 4 questions, from 40 questions down to 36, and the section is actually increasing its time from 35 to 40 minutes. The test takers will have an average of 67 seconds per question, which is a big jump from the 52 seconds per reading question currently. The math test will go from 60 questions to 45 questions, and another 10-minute decrease here. The current test is 60 minutes. The enhanced test is going to be 50 minutes. That means that students will have about 67 seconds per question, and currently they have about 60 seconds per question. Lastly, if our students choose to take the optional science test, that section is still 40 questions, but the ACT is increasing the total time from 35 to 40 minutes. That increases the time per question to 60 seconds from today's 52. The initial thought when hearing the decrease in questions and the more time per question is that the enhanced ACT will be easier for students. But in truth, less questions means less room for error. Each question or incorrect answer means more. So shorter does not necessarily mean easier. In December of 2024, the ACT actually released a full-length practice test. Just one test for each section: English, math, reading, and science. So based on those, we've rounded up what we think students can expect when they encounter the newly enhanced online ACT test that is coming out in April of 2025. In English, the ACT released a video saying that every question will have clear instructions or question stems before the question's multiple choice questions. Questions today often present a passage with certain parts underlined and pose answer choices thereafter, implying possible changes to the underlined section. But they do not present a clear question. Going forward, questions will be asked such as, what choice is less redundant in this context? Or which choice makes this sentence more grammatically acceptable? The English practice test showed 6 passages instead of 5 as the section has today. We've been told that one of the reading passages will also be an argumentative essay. On the reading practice test, ACT added slightly more questions in the integration of knowledge and ideas category. So these are questions requiring students to understand the author's claim, use evidence to make connections, and differentiate facts from opinion. There were also slightly fewer questions in the key ideas and details section. This category requires students to read texts closely to determine central ideas and themes. On the math test, the current ACT gives 5 answer choices, but the enhanced test will have that decreased down to 4. Now, this is great for students as they will have one less option per question. And this is going to increase their chances of getting those questions correct. There's also indication on the Practice Enhanced Math ACT that students can expect more questions about high school math concepts, things especially like algebra, functions, and geometry, and fewer questions about pre-high school math concepts. Lastly, for the optional science test, the ACT is adding an engineering and design passage, although this was not part of the practice test that was originally released. The practice test did have 7 passages instead of the current 6, with one of them being an additional experimental passage. This indicates perhaps the emphasis for students to need a little more scientific background knowledge to perform well on this section. But keep in mind, parents, we're basing all of this off of assumptions off of a single practice test. There will be more information about these enhancements and specific changes to each section, but it's crucial to know this and start preparing now. Enhancing your child's college application is so important, and it can be as simple as making strategic choices about the ACT. Some colleges, especially competitive programs, they value or even require the ACT writing and science sections. Strong scores in these areas can help your application set apart. So who should be taking these sections? Let's talk about science first. For the science section, it's a great choice for STEM students who are interested in biology, chemistry, engineering, or even pre-med. It also benefits analytical thinkers who enjoy interpreting data and scientific experiments. If you're looking for science-related scholarships, a strong science score can make a difference. And for the writing section, it's ideal for strong writers. These strong writers who want to showcase their ability to analyze and construct arguments. It's especially beneficial for humanities and law majors, such as students who are interested in English, journalism, communications, political science, and law, as we just mentioned. And if you're someone who excels in essay writing, but finds multiple choice English sections challenging, this section can help play into your strengths. By taking these optional sections, Students have the ability to boost their applications and demonstrate the skills that align with their college and career goals. Taking the ACT writing and science sections don't just enhance your college application. It also comes with additional benefits that can support your academic and career goals. First, they help demonstrate your strengths. These optional test sections allow students to showcase abilities that go beyond the core tests, whether it's analytical thinking through the science section or strong communication skills through the writing section. Second, they align with intended majors. If you're planning to enter a STEM field, taking the science section can highlight your ability to interpret data and analyze experiments. On the other hand, students pursuing humanities, communication, or law can use the writing sections to demonstrate their critical thinking skills. Third, they open doors to scholarship opportunities. We have to keep in mind that some scholarships and honors programs are going to take these writing and science scores into account. This means that doing well in these sections can help secure financial aid or exclusive academic opportunities in the schools. And finally, they build test-taking endurance. We have to remember that these additional sections extend the length of time. This helps students develop the stamina for future standardized exams, things like the MCATs, the LSATs, or the GRE. And this experience can be especially valuable for those planning to enter graduate school or professional school. By choosing to take the writing and/or the science sections, students can not only enhance their college applications, but also set themselves up for long-term success. Now, we've gone through a lot of the changes with this enhanced ACT. So let's discuss now what isn't changing on this test. Now, first, the ACT is not getting rid of paper testing. Students will always have the choice between paper or a computer online test. That is not changing anytime soon, according to the ACT. Second, the ACT will not be an adaptive test like we see with the current digital SAT. The ACT remains a linear test, and that does not change or adapt questions to the students as they're taking the test. Third, the scoring on the ACT is still going to be on a scale of 1 to 36. Students get one raw point for every correct answer and no penalty for wrong or omitted answers. The science section will not be part of that composite score though, so keep that in mind. And nothing is changing with the ACT writing test, or as we like to call it, that essay. It's still optional and still in the same format and prompt. Taking the ACT with writing can give you an edge in college admissions by showcasing your writing skills and adding depth to your college applications, especially with an ELA score, with that English language arts score. And lastly, the ACT will still use the same benchmarks to measure college readiness as it does today. And that means, of course, that ACT will continue to be used in college admissions and for scholarship opportunities. We're seeing more students are submitting their their scores to colleges. So it's so important to use this ACT and prepare for the ACT to help your college admissions stand out. Now, here are the dates for the ACT that has been released for 2025. And the ACT will share the rest of the specific dates for September onward soon. But we know that, like always, there will be national ACT dates in September, October, and December. Again, for April, June, and July of this year of 2025, online testing only. The ACT will include the enhancements that we've discussed, including the optional science section. For those same dates for paper testing, the ACT will be the same as it is right now for science, including a required science section within that composite score. Then, starting in September of 2025, all national ACT tests will include the changes. And as mentioned previously, starting in the spring of 2026, state and district tests that students take at school will also include enhancements as well. Okay, so you shared in the beginning of this call what grades your students are in. So let's discuss now how your students are affected. If you have a current junior who will graduate in 2026 and go to college in the fall of 2026, you have choices. Most students take the ACT or SAT by the spring of their junior year for the first time. That means that your students are thinking about this right now. Your juniors have two options. Take the ACT in its current format with the science required and part of their composite score in April, June, or July in 2025 on paper. The other choice for your junior is to wait to take the shorter enhanced ACT with the optional science section and the other changes that we've mentioned. They'll be able to do this starting in the spring. They'll be able to do this starting in April with the online test. Parents of sophomores, really, your students have two choices as well. They can take the current ACT in April, June, or July if they wish. Their only option for paper ACT. Not quite as many sophomores take the ACT or SAT in the summer before their junior year, but some do. And it's a great way to get ahead. Just know that in the fall or spring of their junior year, their only option will be the enhanced ACT. If your student is planning to take the July ACT test, preparation needs to start now. You may think that there is plenty of time to plan and prepare, but the July test will be here before you know it. Also, another friendly reminder that all national test dates will be the new enhanced format starting in September of 2025. So the opportunity to choose between the legacy test on paper and the new enhanced ACT are limited. Parents of freshmen, your students will take the enhanced ACT. They'll experience a shorter test with science and writing optional. And so by the time that they take this test, we'll know a lot more about this change, this enhanced test, and how to prepare for it. So what do we recommend? I do want to point out, we haven't included seniors here, as most of them really are done with their testing, or they're even in the process of deciding where to go for college. But if there are any seniors out there that are still taking this test in April, they should go with the current ACT. When freshmen eventually prep for the SAT or ACT, they will only have access to the enhanced ACT. Current sophomores and juniors, we recommend these students to take the paper format by July. But why? First, as we've said and have to reiterate, this is a different test. There's no word from colleges on how they'll use the enhanced ACT scores, and we can't confirm yet that colleges will treat scores exactly the same way. Some might adjust their requirements to have students take the science section and submit those scores. Those types of things we just don't know yet, which is why it's worth a strong consideration for students to take the current ACT instead on paper, rather than waiting to take the enhanced ACT. Second, the availability for testing on this digital test is limited, and ACT has not been offering online testings everywhere in the country. So some students may not even have this as an option to take the digital test nearby in April or even over the summer. Or if there is a site nearby that offers it, we have to expect those seats to fill up quickly. If students are considering the online ACT, research to ensure the version of the test is offered in your area. Third, 18 to 20% of the total questions on the new enhanced ACT will be experimental, or what they call field test questions. These questions are for research purposes for the ACT, and they will not count at all towards the student score. ACT does this on their current ACT, but it's in what we know as test 5, or the 5th section. It's a 20-minute section at the very end of the test. It focuses on one subject, so English, math, reading, or science. And students know that the 5th section is an experimental section, and they're encouraged to do their best. This new method, though, of delivering experimental content on the enhanced ACT distributes these experimental questions throughout each section of the test. The students will not know what counts as a real question or not, so they will need to perform their very best on every single question. Fourth, we have to remember that there are fewer questions on the enhanced ACT test, which means that students have less room for mistakes. Each question counts so much more for the total overall score. And lastly, students' science scores won't contribute towards their composite score. So for strong science students, this puts more pressure on the English, reading, and writing tests. What else do parents need to know here about the enhanced ACT? So some of you already know that, as we've seen in the survey results, but taking the ACT and the SAT is worth it, and that's why you're here. These test scores play a major role in the college admissions process. It is true that during the pandemic, many colleges and universities went from test optional when test centers were closed, and it was difficult for students to take the test. Some colleges, though, have returned to requiring SAT and ACT scores, but even those that are still test optional, they use those scores when submitted. The reality is, even as test optional, submitting strong ACT or SAT scores with college applications puts students at an advantage. They should do so to showcase their potential and demonstrate college readiness. Colleges are looking for objective evidence that students have the skills and knowledge to succeed. Strong ACT and SAT scores are exactly that. This offsets a lower GPA. Students with GPAs that are lower than the college's most recent class profile average GPA with standardized test scores are likely to be higher than the average scores of the college's recently enrolled class. They should submit their test scores. Students should submit strong scores to complement or evaluate the other parts of their application. Lastly, they should submit scores to stand apart from the competitive college admissions landscape. Overall, the goal is for students to be the strongest candidate for admissions, and high ACT and SAT scores can help that. Colleges use these ACT and SAT scores to evaluate students for admission, of course, but they also use these scores in other ways too. First, many colleges use test scores to screen students for merit-based scholarships. Colleges also use test scores to evaluate students for direct admission into certain competitive programs, majors, or schools within a college, like to the business school or for an engineering major or program. So a good ACT or SAT score can identify students who are strong and provide them with opportunities at enrollment. So for reference, meeting a benchmark on this test suggests that student is at a high probability of succeeding in their first year of college in that subject. So let me share with you some benchmarks of where we were in 2024. For the class of 2024, in the ACT, it was about an even split. 51% of students taking the English test met the benchmark, where 49% did not. With math, only 29% on the ACT met the benchmark, which means 71% did not. In reading, 40% met the benchmark, where 60% did not. And in science on the ACT in 2024, only 30% of students met the benchmark, where 70% did not meet the benchmark. When we look at the SAT reading and writing section, 62% met, where 38% did not meet the benchmark, but more alarmingly in math, 41% of students did meet the benchmark, while only 59% did not. That is a large number of students to not beat the benchmark. So how can Huntington help your student with the ACT or SAT if that's what they decide to take? Let's talk about here what we do. First, it's important to understand, parents, that not all ACT and SAT prep is the same. We feel that there really are 5 must-haves for an effective test prep program. First, students need to plan. That study plan should be built around the student's baseline that comes from their initial practice test, their strengths and their areas of their biggest opportunity for improvement. Frequent practice tests are the second essential for test prep. Third, the best test prep focuses on vital test strategies such as time management, analyzing different question types, and strategic guessing, since there are no penalties for wrong answers on the ACT or the SAT. Fourth, you need a consistent study schedule with regular study sessions. And lastly, you need to be in a program that has proven results. Huntington's program incorporates all of those test prep essentials, helping students improve their ACT and SAT scores and open doors to their top college choices. Here's how we do this. We start first by doing a comprehensive evaluation or a full-length practice test. We use the results that test to pinpoint the student's strengths and weaknesses, so we can design a program that's tailored to the student's abilities and goals. We then develop a personalized exam prep plan based on the results of that practice test. The student will be set up with a certified tutor to begin prep. We offer flexible scheduling for all programs, which are available in a one-to-one format online in the center or via a hybrid approach that involves a mix of both in-person and online. Now, how about those results? Yes, we have those too. Students who complete Huntington's SAT and ACT prep programs see an average of 229 points on the SAT and 5.4 points on the ACT. We are so proud of our proven results, and we offer many advantages like flexible scheduling, certified experienced teachers, and a variety of prep choices. Now, preparation starts early. So being placed in the wrong math class as early as 5th grade can impact the student's ability to take algebra in the 7th or 8th grade, which in turn affects their math courses that they take in high school. Many students use grades and standardized test scores to track students into different math levels, potentially limiting future opportunities in advanced coursework. It's important for parents to stay informed and to advocate for proper placement to keep their child on track for higher level math. Huntington has the experience and proven results in prepping students for any test. So call us today for an evaluation to get your program set up as soon as possible. We have many happy parents, and excuse me, just some to call out up on the screen. Debbie M shared, thanks to Huntington, our son improved his ACT score from 27 to 35. We're so happy with not just the score, but the overall experience. We'll be back for our younger son. And C. Cruz shared that Huntington is amazing. My daughter's SAT score increased over 300 points in less than a year of their program. The tutors, and especially the director, are so passionate about getting their child to learn and think better. And these are just only some of the testimonials we've received from happy families. So why Huntington? Overall, our prep programs help students get results. Our programs are customized for each individual student and teach them the skills and strategies they need to earn the highest possible scores, building their confidence along the way. Remember, meeting a benchmark on this test suggests that a student has the highest probability of succeeding in their first year of college in that subject. Now is the time to get your child prepared. And let's go over what it looks like for your students, or really any students and their younger siblings. Getting into college requires consistent effort for many years, and we can help your child become the best student possible and achieve their goals even from an early age. Our foundational programs are our Learning Center and exam prep programs that we went over just a few moments ago. The Learning Center program is the academic skill-based program that's customized to meet students' academic needs. These are for students in kindergarten through 12th grade, where we will work with students in tutoring, phonics, reading, writing, spelling, math, sciences, study skills, study-specific areas, and the ADHD program. And our test prep programs prepare students not just for the SAT or ACT as we've been talking about today, but also for state and standardized exams. SAT and ACT, which we mentioned, but the PSAT, your state tests, advanced placement tests, and high school entrance exams. At Huntington, we start all of our programs with a full academic assessment through our academic evaluation. This evaluation helps our teachers identify your child's academic strengths and pinpoint the gaps they're experiencing. With this information, we create a personalized program tailored to your child's needs. This academic evaluation allows parents to stop guessing and get the answers needed to take action and help their child achieve their full academic potential. The nation's 4th and 8th graders once again posted underwhelming performance on the National Assessment of Educational Progress, with 2024 showing little to no progress towards regaining pre-pandemic levels in math and reading. Understanding your child's current academic standing is the first essential step to ensuring that they stay on track for success.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marielle. Let's dive into some Q&A. We've got a lot of great questions coming in. This is certainly a lot of content and a lot of valuable information, so we appreciate everybody sticking with us. So the first question I have relates to the science section, Marielle. So this is, with the science section being optional in the new SAT, what guidance do you have on whether or not a student should take that section?
I think with the science section being optional, you really want to take a look and see where does your child excel. We have to keep in mind, as we talked about earlier in this webinar, that the science score will not be included in the composite score, which means the main overall score for this ACT. So if your child is a STEM student, someone interested in biology, chemistry, engineering, or pre-med, this is a section that they will want to take. We have to be mindful that it is not going to be for every student, but if they're in one of those areas, that is definitely something to take into consideration. As we shared earlier as well, colleges have not released what they're going to do with these new or enhanced test results. What are they going to be requiring? What will be optional? What will they just look at if you submit it? Since we don't know that, the recommendation is that if you are a STEM student, really focus in one of those areas I just mentioned, or someone who is an analytical thinker, someone who is looking into some type of science-related scholarships, a strong science score can make the difference. So prepare to take that test to give yourself that leg up when you're submitting your applications.
Excellent. I know you covered this, but this question came in a couple of times. How do I know if my child would do better taking the digital ACT or the paper ACT? I know that digital tests are new for some students. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, Michael, because I think there are a lot of areas, a lot of aspects with this decision. You have to consider, how does your child learn? Are most of the tests that they're taking in school done on a computer, or are they being done pencil to paper? How about their textbooks? Are they used to doing reading and reading their textbooks, their material for school on a screen or on a paper? Ultimately, you need to consider the options, because how they learn, how your child learns, is going to be something important to keep in mind, but also you have to see, are there tests available to you? Yes, this is a shiny new toy because it is something brand new, and it is a shorter test, which I'm sure that a lot of students are going to be excited to take. But are there tests available in your area? Is this something that is even an option for you, or is this something that you're going to have to drive super far on a Saturday morning just to take? All of these things really should be considered before making that decision. And if you're still in the spot of, I'm not sure, stick with what you know. We know that the paper-based current ACT has been proven and it has been used. And if your child is that junior or that sophomore, we recommend taking the test as it currently is now by July. If you decide to do the enhanced version, or maybe you're a parent of a freshman where you're not going to have an option, keep in mind that you'll still have that option of digital versus paper-based. And it's really a matter of, what does your child do better? Where do they perform better? How do they prepare better? Ultimately, to kind of sum up all of that, because I think that was a fairly long answer, the way that they prepare for this test should be the way that they take it. So if they're used to doing things digitally, take the digital test. If they're used to doing things on paper, they still have that option of that paper test as well.
Oh, that's a good answer. So we'll do a couple more, and then I'm going to ask you for just a couple of key takeaways, and we'll close things out. If we didn't get to your specific question, I know we got a lot of Q&A coming in, and some very good technical questions too. And we'll just reach back out to you if we don't get to your specific question. So this question came in. It says, when should my child start preparing for their tests? And I know you covered different years in school and things like that, but just broadly speaking, when should kids really start to prepare for the ACT or the SAT?
The short answer to that question is now. When it comes to preparing, you want to give your child as much opportunity to get the best score as possible. The highest score that they can receive on these tests, or I shouldn't even say receive, the highest score that they're able to earn on these tests opens up more doors to their college choices. You want to give your child an opportunity to not just let the schools choose them, but to let your child choose the schools that they want to go to based on all of their options that they have available. So prepare now, prepare early. Like I had mentioned, when it comes to Huntington, we start with that academic evaluation. We need, and you need to be able to understand where are your child's strengths and opportunities, and then put together a plan to get them that highest score possible.
Good. And let's do one more, and then we'll get a couple of key takeaways. And this is a really good question, because there are colleges that are still test optional, and this person wants to know, with some colleges and universities still test optional, in what situations would you recommend taking the test and submitting scores?
So I think that the test optional question is interesting, and I'll give you a little bit of history here. As a point of reference, in the past 2 to 3 years, about 50, I want to say maybe about 54 test optional colleges have gone back to requiring scores. So since the pandemic, 120 of them have returned to requiring them. When it comes to submitting scores, you have to think of your college applications like a resume. The more skills you can share that you have, the better opportunity you're going to have to get those schools to accept you. If you are leaving out one of the ingredients or one of the skills or one of the areas where you are performing in, whether you are performing well or great, it still shows that level that you spent the time to take the test, and that aspect of submitting that score, even to test optional schools, gives you a leg up to all of those other students who decided not to submit them. So it's really about boosting that toolbox, boosting that resume to give you the best possible chance of getting accepted to those schools.
Great. Now let's do just a couple of key takeaways, because there's a lot of information, and I'm sure if you're a parent, right, you're looking at all these dates and everything like that. But if you had to sum it up to a couple of key takeaways for parents to really be thinking about, what would those be?
I think it goes back to one of my favorite quotes, and that's the fact that proper preparation prevents poor performance. You have to prepare yourself for this test, whether it is the enhanced ACT, the current ACT, or the current SAT even. If you do not prepare for this test, you're not giving yourself as many options as possible to get the highest score. High scores leads to a more stronger college application, and a stronger application leads to a better chance of acceptance. We have to remember that the better students score on these tests, the more skills that they're able to show that they have, the better chance they have of being recognized with these college applications. The strong applications lead to more acceptance, and more acceptances ultimately leads to your child making that decision of where they want to go, rather than the schools telling them whether or not they're accepted. So it's really important to prepare earlier than you think you need. That way you have the luxury of time to get the best scores possible.
Great. Yeah, get started, right? I mean, don't worry. Even right now, I think the key is right. It's at least get started. But it's always that first step that's the hardest. And once you get into the rhythm, then you'll be on good shape. So thank you so much, Marielle. This has been a lot of really great content. Really appreciate your time today. And of course, on behalf of Marielle and Huntington Learning Center, appreciate all of your time. We thank you so much for joining us. If you have questions, we ask that you do give us a call. You got our website at the earlier part of the presentation, but 1-800-CAN-LEARN and huntingtonhelps.com for other kinds of resources, or to just chat with one of our education specialists. But that concludes today's presentation. On behalf of Marielle and Huntington Learning Center, I want to say thank you again. We look forward to seeing you at the next event. Stay well, everybody.